Amazonia, we heard this morning, even 40% of the soil carbon stock. So there's a huge resource of carbon in these peatlands, and it's important to get the mitigation, or to get the conservation right and the restoration for mitigation. So you may actually ask yourself, what can I learn now in this session? We had actually, some of us had a global Peatland Initiative side event last week in Bonn in the Substar Climate Conference. We also had a CIFOR, European Space Agency, and University of Vienna's side event in the same venue also last week. And we had a 3-day Global Peatland Initiative workshop this week. So what is new now in this session? And we have parallel sessions also. I think we have a very distinguished panel here that is also new in this composition in all these events so far in the last 2 weeks. And so we are going to learn a lot of new things. And so I think it's going to be very exciting. It's important that we have precise data on peatlands, and that's part of the presentations are going to talk about that. And it's important that we also get restoration right, and that's what other speakers are going to talk about. Before we get into the presentations by the speakers, I'd like to show one slide myself. I don't know, are the slides showing? Are they on that screen or? Can you show the slide? Yesterday I made a little piece of research looking at the NDC registry. You know, the NDCs are the nationally determined contributions, the way the Paris Agreement is going to be filled with activities from the bottom up. And I looked for search terms, forestry, in 139 submitted NDCs. It's a little bit lower number than the INDCs, but I just looked at the NDCs. 100 times forestry comes up. 89 times land use comes up. 68 times forest comes up, and then it goes down coast 20 times, mangrove 18 times, lake 10 times, wetland 6, and not all of them are tropical. And then if you look at peatlands or any other peat-related terms, there is 0. So I think we need to do a little bit more in order to move peatlands up into the NDCs and to the awareness of policymakers and put them into the policy activity in those countries, policy action in those countries. Of course, the peatlands may be implicit in when you talk about forests, when countries talk about land use and so on, but I think it may be necessary that there is a little bit more of attention given to this particular ecosystem. And so that's what I like to keep you to keep in mind to frame this session a little bit in terms of where we want to go with peatlands in climate action. And that's all I have to say myself right now. I'd like to move into the presentations, and the first speaker will be Daniel Murdiyarso. As I said before, he's my colleague. He's a researcher. He has a PhD in forestry, in meteorology from University of Reading. Before he had studied in IPB in Bogor, the agricultural university. He has also been working in the IPCC a lot, and he has been Deputy Minister of Environment for 2 years in 2000 and 2001, and in that capacity was also national focal point for the IPCC and for the CBD. And so now he's a very cherished colleague in CIFOR and leading what we call the SWAMP project, which is just a very convenient acronym for the Sustainable Wetlands and Adaptation and Mitigation Program. Daniel will tell you a little bit about the new peatland map. And Daniel, you have to stand on this thing here. here because that's the only microphone we have.
Right. Thank you, Christopher, for the introduction. And I was standing like Christopher last week, exactly on Thursday, chairing a session in Substa on this particular topic. Now I'm presenting it. But I want to assure you that what I'm trying to describe today, can you have the slides, please? Slightly different in the context of this GLF, why it matters and who matters for whom. And I want to make sure that the history of developing this map, it's not a final product. It is a living document. If you visit the landscape lab, right in the corner, there is an interactive map that everybody can follow through the website. So the title here is, it is new, but also interactive. So I will tell you why is it new and how it can be interactive. Right, so it is new because it was published 2 weeks ago in the Global Change Biology, and we try a new approach in terms of developing this. First, it is a medium kind of moderate kind of scale. We use MODIS, so that's free for everybody, and it's not very fine, but we cover global wetland. So it's huge data set that we have, and try to extract the best data, and we look at it from the 2010 to 2012, and the average is somewhere around 2011. That's the anomaly of the climate. So don't be surprised if you find numbers are overestimated because it's La Nina year. So when we are talking about wetland, the globe was very wet at that time. It is new because we try to use what we call expert system. Experts mean that we don't impose our intention to do things. We use the best available data, and it is there, and we use it. First of all, is to look at the water balance of the globe, to look at the input and output, so we see what's the remaining, or the deficit, if you wish. And another layer is the topography, so that we know where are these surpluses will be accumulating, and use the SRTM to look at that so we can see how wet the surface is. So we have that classification of wet soil in the map. So we have wetland map, and the next challenge is how to put the layer of peatland. So again, the expert says that if you have, this is the definition we adopted, organic material more than 30 centimeters, that's peat. So like it or not, that's what is the rest of the word define it. And if the peat is more than 50% organic material, then that's even finer in terms of information. And that is about 29% of carbon in it. So from wetland, we have peatland, and that's global. So this is the expert system we try to adopt it here. The map, you can see it in the website. It's global, but I want to highlight what's there. We found that wetland and peatland is found more in Latin America instead of Asia. So we found 46% of the global peatland is in Latin America, not in Asia. Asia is second. And by country, Brazil is the largest, larger than Indonesia. And then the remaining is in Africa. So that's the thing that we ourselves was kind of surprised. So it's different. Again, because we use different definition, or the definition that we adopted, and we use 2011 as La Nina year. If we zoom it in this area, in the Marañón in Peru, I'm glad that Peruvian scientists are here, and then also the work in Peru are represented, and in Congo basin, and in Indonesia, there are different kind of density in terms of carbon, because we also managed to assess the depth and also the carbon content in each of this. Again, this is the limitation we have. We only have somewhere around 300, 350 data point across the globe. So this map invites you, if you are expert, to work into more detail. The area is there. The TIFF file is downloadable. If you look at the map that we have here, basically, you can interact with this map, and you can find where the wetlands are, where the peat are, and then you zoom it in a country, and then you can download the data in TIFF format. So you can work it out. That's why it is interactive, so that we also want to make sure you register, so we have the record who are visiting and contributing, so that at the end of the day, we will be able to improve the map that we have. So the next step, what we would like to do, as I said earlier, this is a live and a living kind of map. We will improve it by having people validating the map. As I said, it's only 1 year, so we need to scale it down in terms of temporal resolution. If people have the chance to look at the phenology, finer resolution in terms of climate, then we might be better off in terms of refining where the wetland and peatland are. And then it is not there at the moment that we only work in lowland peatland. We have not done the mountain peat, and that's huge. In Peru, in China, in highland of Africa also. So it is still untouched, and it is not done. And in the context of this forum, we are talking about restoring peatland or wetland. If we have finer resolution in terms of time, we might be able to monitor time by time the degraded peatland, so that we can do the scoping of the area and the situation and direction or trend of degradation as well. So in the global context, as Christopher mentioned, actually the awareness about the importance of peatland for climate change mitigation and adaptation is already there about 3 years, 4 years ago. We were invited by the Substa of the UN, and they intentionally ran a workshop like what we did last week, especially to look at high carbon reservoir, which include peatland, mangrove, and wetland. And it is there in the agenda, which was not in the agenda item of the UNEP-WCMC. So hopefully, from now on, wetland, peatland will be an agenda item. If you know the process in the Substa, in the COP, APA is, I think it's got 13 agenda items now. I hope peatland will have more and more in terms of attention from the negotiator, because it is very timely now to look at, again, methodologically speaking, IPCC was asked by the UNEP-WCMC to develop the methodology to do the accounting or inventory of greenhouse gases, of carbon in wetland. So this is a special report, a supplement to the 2006 guideline, and the most important thing from that document is the message or the methodology for wetland, including peatland and mangrove. And lastly, as Christopher mentioned in the beginning, if we relate this kind of work and try to capture what is the need of the national government, NDC is one, because we see a lot of countries in that survey, you can see people already use NDC as an entry point. And again, it is a living document. They will revise it year by year. So peatland can be part of this. I believe Indonesian government is picking this up, and Peruvian will be soon, and Congo, when we discussed with the delegates in Bonn last week, they are very eager to include peatland in their NDC. And then another mitigation option through REDD is also openly available, and it's time now to explore that. And the beautiful thing with NDC with the Paris Agreement is that they also include or even look at adaptation in a balanced manner. So again, peatland, wetland will be part not only for mitigation, but also adaptation. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Please keep your questions for later. I'd like to ask now Budi Wardhana from the Peatland Agency to speak. He's the deputy head of the National Peatland Restoration Agency. You know the Peatland Agency, he's a head for planning and cooperation. He previously worked at WWF Indonesia as director for policy, sustainability and transformation. And he also worked for a long time, more than 10 years, at the Ministry of Environment, where he was at the end head of division for biosafety. And he will, so his work is on policy analysis and sustainable transformation. And he will talk to us about using LiDAR for peatland restoration planning. Budi, please come to the microphone.
Thank you, Christoph. The slide, please. So, as in the morning, Pak Nasir said that the two technology that PRC requires, the two most, one of them is on the technology for peatland mapping. So I will present one of the state-of-art in peatland mapping that we use. It's not the newest one, but this is the best available technology that we have currently. So we use LiDAR technology for peatland restoration planning. Oops. So I will present you the background of why the government of Indonesia really focusing on and put efforts to restore peatland. One of the reasons is the continuous in 18 years without any gaps. Every year in 18 years we have forest and land fire in Indonesia, and more those fires happens on a peatland. And what is the significant effect of peatland fire is that it can get fire in the long time period because of the amount of biomass that get burned throughout the fire season or the dry seasons. I also would like to give you an introduction on LiDAR and aerial photography technology for our peatland restoration planning. The use of thematic spatial analysis for land cover and hydrotopography data, the availability of geospatial thematic data for biophysical restoration planning, and the closing, the kesimpulan, what is the summary of the use of this technology for restoration planning. So remote sensing technology, if any of you have been in peatland before, so you understand the advantage of having this remote sensing technology, because we can gather the various information type, time, money, manpower, efficiency, accessibility. You know how accessible it is, the peatland forest. It's difficult to go there and to go to the point that we need to check in the peatland. Track changes over time, because we use the satellite imagery, and then on the same spot of area, we can have data from time to time. So we can monitor the changes of land cover, and with LiDAR and radar, we can have three-dimensional data that we can use to make models on, and also to put where the constructions of rewetting should be built. The type of sensor that we use, we have active and passive one. We have type of platform. We can use spaceborne platform, satellite, or we have airborne, small, medium-sized airplane, drone, and also hand carried, or we carried through the land and through the peatland. For instance, the ground penetrating radar that used by CIFOR also to measure the depth of peatland. So the LiDAR technology stands for the light detection and ranging, is the same as radar but using laser beam. And we use three types of measurement that we have. We use inertial measurement unit to ensure that the data that gathered throughout the flying of this airplane to gather data is accurate enough. And from large-scale mapping for detailed plan, we have recording data acquisitions, we have points cloud laser data, we have assessment, and then resulted in digital elevation model and 3D point cloud modeling. What is used for? So we can look into highly resolutions data that we can see the ground sample distance of 10 centimeters, vertical accuracy of 10 centimeters also, and the horizontal accuracy of 7 centimeters. So it's quite accurate and it's quite detailed. And the spatial data produced is aerial photographic, the DEM, digital elevation model, and also thematic and base map at the scale of 1 to 2,500 scale. And land cover in 3D point cloud, we can see that we have the overview of the areas in terms of forest covers and also the what we call the height and also the structures of vegetations over the same area. And then we applied to the land use over the peatland. We can see that the difference between the young oil palm, mature oil palm, swampy shrub, expand over areas over the peatland, and also forest land with good tree cover. All of those three distinct features is the main input that we use for peatland restoration planning. The 3D modeling of the same map, and then the peatland hydrological unit map that the government already published based on the scale of 1 to 2,500,000 scale, and also peatland designation map. Designation map means the designations for the cultivation and for the protections map. It should be developed for the scale of 1 to 50,000. That's 10 more. That's we need to correct that. Okay. And then we have hydrological analysis map that we produce in the scale of 1 to 2,500, which we can gather the informations of the drainage density, flow pattern, flow directions, and also the width and the depth of each of the canal, and also to generate a land cover map with the vegetation density, cultivated land, natural land, and also the types of vegetations over the land. It's all produced in one flight of the map. The two, I could not point it in here, but the two map on below is the produce of the LiDAR, one of the produce of the LiDAR. And using the dam from the data from the LiDAR, we can point out in which directions of the canals that we should block. In these examples, with the length of these particular canals, we have 5.7 kilometers length of this particular canal from the yellow X to the other yellow X. And from the 2X, the height difference is only 50 centimeters, in which that's the criteria for putting the canal blocking or the dams. So the head dams will be on that X, the first X, and then the second X. This is also the result of using LiDAR. And also using the LiDAR, we can see the hydrotopography. We can also identify which one is the primary drainage canal, which one is the secondary drainage canal, and the shape of the dome. and also the natural drainage system or reference system. And also we use those maps, the 7 maps. We do the database peat restoration land unit. We overlay with the data of forest product timbers utilizations, meaning the concessions of forestry industry, and also the concessions of palm oil industries. And with the 2 overlay of those database, we can identify which one and who's going to be responsible for the restorations of particular land. UPRG means Unit Pengelola Restorasi Gambut, the management unit that's responsible for the peatland restorations. We can identify each of the unit management. What it looks like? So this is the aerial photography, and then we can identify what is the type of land use of the peatland. This is also the examples of abandoned peatland. This is the burn over areas. And then why we need the high resolution data for peatland management planning. We need to rezone or reallocating peatlands land use for the production and protection purpose. We have peatlands water management design that sometimes we need to redesign the water management of the management unit, providing 3-dimensional features, detailed thematic data for the vegetational covers, land use, land management system, hydrotopography, morphometric of the peatland and topographic of the peatland. And then we identify the restorations of degraded peatland through rewetting, revegetations, and other socio-economic revitalizations of the local communities. This is the surface elevations of Cawang Air Lalang peat hydrological unit. You can see in that the water management is important in the plantations on peatland areas to prevent fire and also subsidence of the peatland, because the continuous subsidence can lead to another disaster. It is not fire, but it will be flooding. It's the same economic effect that will hit the local community. We can use also the result of the LiDAR mapping to measure the carbon stock estimations, especially the above ground carbon biomass, and also using the multi-stage processing of small to medium scale with the generalization of aggregations and then detailing. We can move both from the land cover and land use map. We can also use the landscape ecological approach to use to gather the information on land cover according to specific criteria, and each of criteria have the implications on the management or the restorations actions. And this is the matrix that we produce from overlaying and doing the analysis. We can see in that matrix the kabupaten or the districts that the restoration activity should be implemented, the unit that is responsible to do the restorations, and also the locations in terms of villages. So we have also the programs we call Desa Peduli Gambut or village-friendly, peat-friendly villages program. And also we can identify how many canal blocking that we need to develop to construct in each of this unit management, down to or going right to the numbers of revegetations, the area that we need to do the revegetations of a degraded peatland. And this is the result. We can blow this map up to the scale that we can identify how many canal blocking that we need to put and what type of revegetations activities that we need to establish. So the red one means that those area has been burned in 2015. The blue one represent the dome or deep pit that already been canalized, and the green one is the area of pit dome or pit depth pit that's still intact. So you can see from this hydrological unit of Cawang and Lalang, the intact peatland is less than 20% of the whole hydrological unit. So thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting and very detailed presentation, Budi. I'm calling now Lera Miles for the next presentation. Lera is Senior Program Officer for Climate Change and Biodiversity in UN Environment, and as I said before, it's actually the UN Environment World Conservation Monitoring Center she's working in. She has been working in her life before on REDD+, and she's still supporting countries on spatial planning for REDD+, while also considering biodiversity and ecosystem services. She also, before joining the WCMC in 2002, she did her PhD in Leeds University on biodiversity in Amazonia. Okay, Lera, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Could we have the slide, please? So despite having done my PhD in Amazonia, today I'm talking about the Congo Basin. It's a real, oh, could we have the slide? It's a real honor to be here today with such a prestigious panel. So thank you very much for having me. I've come here from the Global Peatlands Initiative meeting. So there's been a second partners meeting of the Global Peatlands Initiative in Jakarta over the last few days. And I've also been privileged to be able to visit some of the peatland area in Sumatra. So it's really great to hear these additional explanations from BRG on how Indonesia is planning to restore its peatlands. But what I wanted to talk about today is a completely different part of the world, the Congo Basin. Could we have the next slide, please? Or can I do that? I have the power. So one of the first things the Global Peatlands Initiative is planning to do is a rapid response assessment on the world's peatlands. So it'll have the opportunity to build on some of the work from Daniel and his colleagues. The intention of the initiative is to build awareness, particularly amongst decision makers in peatland countries and indeed in the donor community, to help bring the plight of peatlands to the world's attention. And the rapid assessment will help to explain some of what we know and some of what we don't know about peatlands, and fill some of those, well, start to identify some of those data gaps. And until recently, in this area in the Congo Basin, there's been a very big data gap. There's been a piece of work undertaken by Greta Dargy, Simon Lewis, and many colleagues, both from the UK and from the Congo Basin. The university, I'm going to pronounce this wrongly, but the University of Marion Ungabi, as well as the Wildlife Conservation Society in the Congo, have helped with this work. What they've been doing is looking at this area. This green blob on the map you can see is a shallow depression about the size of Germany in the central Congo Basin called the Cuvette Centrale. And in this area, it was clear that there was peat, but there wasn't a great deal of evidence to suggest how much peat there might be. So this team went to the area, they did some transects, so they got an idea of what kinds of vegetation types were on peat, and also what the depth of the peat was and the density of the peat in those transects. It's quite a small team, but they looked at 8 transects of between, I think, 2 and 20 kilometers, so it's a good first sample. And then they've taken some remote sensing information, so like Daniel, they've been looking at the topography, they use radar to get to an idea of standing water, and they used optical imagery. And from this, they built a model of the vegetation types. So they had an idea of which vegetation types were on peat, and they modeled the vegetation types to get to an estimate of the peatland area in the region. And they got to around 145,000 kilometers squared. So this is a much larger area than people had previously been aware was likely to be covered by peatland. And that team would be the first to say this is a first estimate, but it's pretty exciting. That estimate suggests that the median depth of these peatlands is about 2 meters, and across that area, that means there could be as much as 30 gigatons of carbon, which is about the same as the amount of biomass in the forest above and below ground across the two countries, so the Republic of Congo on one side and the Democratic Republic of Congo on the other. So it's the same story all over the world, right? The peatlands occupy just a small fraction of the national area, but they have a very large proportion of the carbon. But of course, we already knew that this area was important for other reasons, and the centre that I come from, a particular interest is biodiversity. We're a biodiversity conservation and ecosystem services centre. So we then worked with Greta and Simon and colleagues to take the opportunity to do a very rapid first assessment of what else was going on in this region. And I'll just show you a couple of maps from that. And that's a contribution to the rapid response assessment that I mentioned to start with. So clearly this area is important for wildlife, for biodiversity. What we can see here in green is the areas that are likely to be peat swamp forest, emphasizing again that this is a first map. So these are all the areas that the maximum likelihood model that they used suggested was more than 50% likely to be peat swamp forest. And the darker green areas are those that are richer in threatened vertebrates, which is species like the western gorilla over to the west or the bonobo over to the east. And then the pink areas, you can see the little pink polygons, those are key biodiversity areas. So they're areas that have been identified using a standard that says they're of global importance for biodiversity. Many of these areas have already been designated as protected areas of one kind or another by the two governments. So, there's clearly an existing commitment to conservation in this region, which is encouraging. And to date, the peatland in this area is in a great condition. These forests are relatively intact. The peat swamp forest itself is about a day's walk from the river, so that's part of the reason why there wasn't very much information about it, is it's been relatively remote and inaccessible. But that picture may be starting to change, and as this map shows in red, you can see areas of tree cover loss. That's come out of the global Matt Hansen data set. And in this particular example, you can see the big polygons are showing where there are concessions that are granted or being offered for exploration for oil and gas, or the little yellow ones for mining concessions. So you can see that there's a possibility that this area will not remain in such an undisturbed state for so long. There are also quite a few logging roads that are starting to come into the region, and there are, around the edges again, there are some logging concessions that have been designated. So we could be at a turning point for this area. And as the delegates from the Congo that have been at the meeting today and at the Global Peatlands Initiative Partners meeting have been very keen to stress, they'd like to make sure that these peatlands are protected in the future and they don't experience some of the problems that have been seen in Southeast Asia with drainage and burning. So what can researchers do to support this grand objective of keeping those peat carbon stocks intact? One obvious step is to refine the carbon stock estimates. So the only transects that have been produced so far have been done by this team, and they've just been done in a limited part of this huge basin. So there's an opportunity to use the vegetation map to quite selectively sample other areas, and then to improve the map based on those samples to get a better idea of how accurate the map is. But I don't think we need to wait for a perfect map to be able to start thinking about what the future threats might be to this region and what the policy responses should be. So we can produce some scenarios that look at that kinds of the concessions data that I was showing later, but also what the likely changes are in commodity demand, food demand, and so on in the region, to have a better idea of the risk of agricultural conversion, because people really aren't very clear about this so far. And then also it would be very helpful to know, in this region, if there was drainage, what would the effects of that drainage on ecosystem services be? We have a lot of lessons from Asia Pacific, but it is a different part of the world, and there is very little knowledge on what drainage might do to the fire risk in this region, what role the peatlands play in the regional hydrology and how that might be affected, what it might do to water quality, and so on. And then, of course, the people working at every level, from the local communities up to the governments, need to think about how they're going to manage this area in future. So there's room for some action research on what the communities are thinking, how they're using the peatlands so far, what their aspirations are for their own future development, and then to get to supporting the national government, the local governments, and thinking about what sound policy options are so that this area can be protected and that any use is sustainable. So I think there's a strong role for the international community to play in supporting the Congos, who are, the two governments are really just beginning to have an idea of the massive carbon stocks that they're responsible for here. They already knew that they had 30 gigatons in their forests, but now another 30 gigatons of carbon. It's a pretty big deal. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks, Lera, for this very interesting glimpse into what's happening in the Congo basin. Our next speaker is Professor Mitsuru Osaki from Hokkaido University. As I said before, he's a professor emeritus of the research faculty, and he's a professor of the Graduate School of Agriculture, or he was. He's a well-known, globally leading scientist on peatlands and wetlands. He works also on greenhouse gas emissions, on fires, on rehabilitation and conservation of peatlands. He was, for several years, the project leader of a GST-JICA project on wildfire and carbon management in peat forests in Indonesia. And this work resulted also in the first book of Tropical Peatlands, which was published last year. He's also president of the Japan Peatland Society, and he has several collaborations with other universities and with organizations in Indonesia. So he will be talking to us about peatland restoration to enhance carbon neutral function. Professor Osaki, please come to the microphone.
So the title is a little bit different. And so you can see this is a quite new terminology, A, B, C, D, E, F, S, securities, enhancement by the tropical peatland restorations. So you see the security is something opposite concept of the crisis. This is the security, and the crisis is something the front or back. And so I want to talk the peatland from the another aspect. So if we dissolve or destroy the completely peatland, which enhance the securities. So this ABCDEF is several securities. Could you give the next one? Yes, what is ABCDEF securities? So as you know, the natural capital in Peatland, which is very high because of the high carbon reserve ecosystems, and you know already, so also the high water, the reserve ecosystem. And so later I'm talking about biomass productivity is also very high compared to the mineral soil in tropical. And so the biodiversity also very high. So if the peatland, the maintain or rehabilitated, we can get this kind of the high value of the natural capitals. And so this is the ABCDFS securities. And if we overcome the crisis, because of crisis mainly depend on the developing of the canals and the water level is decreasing. So this is one of the crisis, and so which is very affected by the climate change. And so, but if to rehabilitate, recover this kind of the drain, the ecosystems, so we can get a very high value of the ABCDFS securities. What is A is aquatic. This is the water. This is a very high the water, the reserve ecosystem. So water security is increasing, and biodiversity is very high, and climate change, the security also increasing because this is the contribute to mitigation as a carbon emission reduction and adaptation, as a high the biomass the production even in the high the water level the conditions, which is against to the El Nino effect. And also the disaster securities. So what is a disaster in peat? That is mainly the fire and haze. And so energy securities, so if the good management, so we can get a huge amount of the biomass from the peatland. And so food feed security, so for example, if we're growing the sago, so this is a very adapted the peatland, and so give the huge amount of the starches. And so this is will be contributed to food security or feed securities. So if roughly calculate, so if compared to the starch production of the rice, so this value is almost 20 times or 10 times higher than the rice. And so the social securities, okay, so if we success this ABCDF, so this security contributed to the social or national the securities. So next one, please. And so for thinking the security of crisis, this is reported from the World Economic Forum. And so the forum point out what is the global the crisis in this 21st centuries. So you see the bottom is livelihood to go to the right. So this the livelihood the crisis is increasing, and so this verticals the impact to the climate and so the natures and so on. And so this security, the crisis also increasing. And so what is the most highest, the crisis from this use two criteria. So the circle, red circle showing that is a water crisis, especially the terrestrial, land, the waters, the amount of the waters and the quality of the waters. So now, you know, the 21st century, so we must thinking or caring about not only the carbon, also water is very important. As already I said, the peatland is both the element, very high the stock. So we should de-estimate the carbon function or water function in the peatland. So next one. So why this kind of the crisis? Why is, for example, the Victoria Falls in the Zambezi rivers? So this is very famous, the falls. So 2012, so we visit IPCC committees, visited here and take pictures. And the border of the Zimbabwe and the Zambia. And so the 2015, maybe you know the super El Niños. And so you see the no waters. I'm very surprised. It's the big, the falls, almost 2 kilometers or so, but dry up. And so I asked to the person who managed the park here, and so never happened before. Even in the 1997 to 8, also we had super El Niños, but waterfall still remained and enough of the waters, which means maybe so climate condition almost same in the both years, and so I'm very worrying about the water stock now, so the getting decrease in this ecosystem in Africa. And next one. This is the Kinabalu Mountain in the Borneo, highest mountain in the Kinabalu. And you can see the crowded, surrounding the mountains. So the cloud gives something moisture to ecosystem. Then, so you see, next one. Next one. So we can find the peat in the cloud forestry from the 1,200 to 500 the height in these areas. So all days almost cloud, then so very humid, and we can find the spongus, and we can find the peat in the slope. Here is around 30 centimeter to 50 centimeters, sometimes 1 meter. So huge, the peat is located in this cloud forestry in Borneo. And so, but I visited to 2015 in super El Nino years. They're normally very wetted, the huge, the waters contained, but dry up completely. And so you can see the bottom, normally they have the big the waterfalls. And so this is another year's the pictures. And so this time, no waters completely. And so not only the African case, also the park, the management, the people say this is the first time completely dry up the fall. And so even in the 1997 to 8, similar the El Niños, but still enough amount of the water supplied because of the huge stock of the waters in the crowded forestry areas. But now, so getting the dry more every years, maybe so the water is coming to short or drying up the ground. And so next one. So this is something whole more bigger the scale, the water and the carbon, the relationship or circulation. And in the bottom, you see already we are discussing the lowland peat and the huge amount of water stock and carbon stock. And so then, water is evaporated or transpirated and make a cloud and circulated inside, or sometimes they bring the water to the mountain, the side. And so the center is, we call the heart of Borneo. Still remain the forestry, but year by year, the deforested. And if the disappears the forestry, maybe the water stock is decreasing. Also, which means if have the rain in the rainy season, and so water may be run off. And dry season, no stock, and dry up the rivers. And so this kind of the big, the circulated ecosystem, now we are very worrying about destroyed by something, the human development of the peat, lowland peat, also highland peat. And so if the peatland degraded by, for example, the drain, and so this increasing the vulnerabilities. And this is the case of the, what to say, if we want to manage the peatland in dry, the peatland, the systems, so which is vulnerability is increasing and resilience is decreasing. But if we change this system and re-wetting to keep high water levels, and so vulnerability is decreasing and resilience is increasing. So maybe this is what to say, very drastically. We cannot select it between of this. So we decide which is better, the management, this kind of the total ecosystem. Next one. So maybe, so this is the general pictures of what is a function of the peatland. So key is water. And so if the peatland forestry deforest, and so something impact climate change, the El Nino or so on, and LULUCF and drain, so that is directly to affect the water status. And so if change the water status, and maybe which means reducing the water condition or amount of the waters, so which affect the carbon emission by fires, and also the carbon emission, the microorganism degradation, and also the carbon loss through the waters. And so we also found this is also affect to the carbon assimilation. This is the photosynthesis. And so this also decreasing by reduce the water tables. Next one. So normally we are thinking the productivity of the plant in peatland will be the small. But from our actually the study in the Kalimantan, and so the red one is mixed dipterocarpus forestry, and the green one is the peatland, and the gray one is Kerangas, the very shallow peat, the sandy soils. And so the above ground biomass is very high in the mineral soils. Maybe this is normally you agree, but productivities, how much the produce the biomass per year per hectares. So if we studied these values, and so the mineral soil, MDF, mixed deforestry, dipterocarpus forestry is low. And if compared to this, so the wood productivity rate is very high, almost 2 or 3 times higher than the mineral soils in the peatland. And so the productivity is very high if it keeps the high water tables, which is growing the natural vegetations, which is very adapted to high water tables. And that the trees or ecosystem give 2 or 3 times higher the productivity. And so next one. So another is a sago. So the sago is, this is the ideal case in the Meranti. And so the very high starch production, that is around 30 tons the starch per hectare per year. And third one is sago, produce around 100 tons the biomass, that is the dry matter per hectare per year. This is something, the record of the biomass production in the global scales. Next one. So in the past, we are only thinking in the small case, the farmers or small, the private company that produce the starch from the sago in wetland. And so, yes, this is also very important. And so this starch contribute to food and feed. And so, but you see the sago, the palm, gives a very high biomass also. And so this was a throw away and nothing or sometimes polluted to environment. And so, but if use the biomass to as a fuels, so which give the high values of the what they say, I say the securities, and also something biomaterials. And you see the some more adapted to close to the coastal areas. And so coastal or mangrove areas, also in this ecosystem, the nippers and the coconuts, and something the mixed forestry, the timbers, we also produce a huge amount of biomass. And so we designed together with what is the benefit to or incentive to conserve or destroy of this the peatland. And so the economic values, potential economic value, very huge, but nothing touch about this kind of the materials until now. So now we think including this kind of the values for peat restoration, the concept. Next one. So this is the conclusion. So the left side, maybe you see the harvested sand, I call. So what is a harvested sand? Already fix the carbon by through the plants, or then the stock as the fossil fuels. One is the oil and coals and something gas. And so, but you know the COP21 agreement, we must reduce drastically to use this kind of the fossil fuels. And so another point, in all time, the stock, the carbon in wetland and something coastal ecosystems. And so this is our topics to how to conserve these areas. So which we call as mitigations. So that is almost equal to the conservation, and that contribute to mitigate the climate change. And so, but this the international agreement, the COP21, and SDGs, another criteria to conserve the ecosystem. SDGs is Sustainable Development Goals, and we have the 16 goals, and more detailed the goal is the huge, but mostly related to something environment or ecological system. How to estimate SDGs? This is another topic in futures. But anyway, so introducing this kind of the criteria. Now, so already we discussing REDD+, and so we can use this mechanism for the credit, carbon credit. And so now, so you know, the Indonesia is leading countries for talking about this kind of the REDD+. But so the Indonesian government to register around 40 the REDD project. But among the 40s, only 2 now come to the biodiversity reserve concession, which is called as REDD project. And so one is Limbaraya, and the second one is PT Limba Makumura Utamas. And very large the areas, the covering. But you see the REDD program, not officially started in Indonesia, and they cover something, the CSR, something another. And so still the many problem of the REDD, and also the carbon credit, the value is very low in international market. And so the credit mechanism is not so the good incentive to promote the peat restorations. But this is still very important. But I recommend more focusing the harvesting sand. Now what we do to harvest the sand. So maybe which is related to renewable energy, the wind, water, solar powers, so on. And another one is biomass. And so I said, especially the peatland give very high biomass, even compared to the mineral soils. And so then this is something adaptation program to climate change. And so they're growing something, this is some examples, the sago, nipple, coconuts, and something trees. And we get food, feed, and energy, and also something materials. And so now you see the CSR only the ethics, but now so after SDGs, the agreement, so the investors, especially bank, is now moving to ESG, and SRI, environmental social governance. And so socially responsible investment, this is a SRI. So what is this? Is not only the criteria. Okay, so the bank or international network of the bank to applying the criteria and estimate some company, for example, destroying the peatland. And so they calculated, for example, the SDGs, the marks, and if give very low the values, no invest, and maybe the company is corrupt. So this is very strong, the powerful, the tools, and we should do more focusing on the mechanism of SDGs, not only the carbon credit. And so the binding together the investment, and not only the credit, maybe so ask to the investment to the biomass. Then so the economic, the incentives, the increasing for local people and for the Indonesian government. And so next one, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Osaki. Now the last speaker is Serena Liu from the Global Environment Center. She is a senior staff where she is working on peatland-related issues, peatland management, supporting institutional development and capacity and frameworks, also in collaboration with ASEAN. And so she will talk to us about community-based peatland restoration experience from 10 years. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So after a long discussion by our expert scientist colleague here, so now it's a community-based practice. So we actually how to transform the information from these technical findings and recommendation to government to really practice on the ground together with the community. So when we talk about community engagement, we're actually looking at partnership. So it's one of the sustainable development goal to have these partnerships for the goals is actually to share knowledge, share expertise, technology, and most important thing, to share the finance to support the achievement of the sustainable development goals in all countries, in particular developing countries. So we actually engage the private sector, civil society partners to build experience and resource strategies of the partnership. So multi-stakeholders partnership with multi-funded projects and programs. We have the ASEAN in the middle because that's the ownership of the programs. Then we have international development agencies which provide financial support, technical support. We also have these NGOs partners, local community partners as well. And not the least, the CSR partners. So we have Samdabi, we have Bo, we have Gamuda and other partners and funders. So these are the documented communities' best management practices in ASEAN region for the past 10 years. So we transform technology to practice, which to engage also the community. So we get the community to participate. So we give them training workshops to strengthen their capacity. One of the most important thing is the fire happening on peatlands. So the technical partner, they come up with the forecast, on the fire risk and how we disseminate this information to the community. So we developed a smartphone application. So we get the land manager to subscribe to the application as well. And then we disseminate automatically to the subscriber. Then engage them to participate to prepare their village map with utilization of GPS. So we have the technology GPS, but usually GPS only used by the expert or maybe our NGO colleague, but we really need to engage the local scientists because they're living there, they know their place, and it's their livelihood. Then for that, this dissemination of information, also community have their own system, their community radio system. So if they don't have internet coverage, but at least they have their community radio. The lesson learned and experience sharing through environmental education, training and workshops to improve their skills. We also have this peer learning program to bring communities from one location to another location to learn from each other. Farming practices, sojourn farming, which is agroforestry practices to integrate planting of cash crop and medium-term tree species. This can be cash crop together with the rubber, geluto. Floating garden, this is the concept was developed in Philippines because they usually have their flood every year. So they have this flood garden concept. For the rehabilitation practices, water management and fire prevention, being a living tree system actually developed by Pak Suwido from Central Kalimantan. Then have a seedling buyback program, the seedling nursery developed by local communities, and seedling to be sold to the government agency or NGO to do the replanting at the degraded peatlands. Then canal blocking, community fire prevention and control. So this is a local community engaged to support patrolling and also to train them with the prevention measures and fire suppression and control. This is really happening in Indonesia because in Indonesia they have a Masyarakat Peduli ABI, the MPR program. For alternative livelihood development, green contract, very famous in Vietnam. This is actually to engage the community living within the buffer zone to take care of the buffer zone, to protect the national park. Then development of environmental friendly energy, so integrate approach where cattle in plantation fed with threaded palm leaves. Then the cow manure turned into biogas, which support the household usage in kitchen or the lights in the house. Ecotourism, so create awareness while providing income opportunity for local communities with limited damage to the ecosystem. Then research and development, so research for compost or burn organic waste to create ash for fertilizer, intercropping, and other innovative to encourage sustainable use of peatlands so that they don't do the burning on the peatland itself. So key factor for successful community engagement in peatland rehabilitation. So the first, engage them from early stage. So they involve in the planning until they practice and do the maintenance. So also to support community organization development, generate clear benefit to community. So it must be clear, it's not unclear. So maybe they have some blind promise, something like that, yeah. But this one is really have to, when you say something, you promise them to do it, you really have to fulfill that. Then awareness enhancement and capacity building, seedling development, planting, maintenance, and fire prevention. So rehabilitate hydrology and encourage power of nature to support natural regeneration. So Wilmington National Park in Vietnam, this is a very successful story where Maluluka Forest on Peatland recognized as ASEAN Heritage Park in 2013, then designated as Ramsar Site in 2016. So it's actually the commitment from the local authorities and technical support from scientists and research institute, as well as the local community at buffer zone, where improve livelihood, reducing dependency on the forest. So this is a multi-stakeholder effort, multi-level effort. So on this best management practices actually come under this ASEAN Peatland Management Strategy 26 to 2020, also under the umbrella of ASEAN Agreement on Trans-Boundary Haze Pollution, which was signed in 2002. Then after that, there's an ASEAN Program on Sustainable Management of Peatland Ecosystem 2014 to 2020, which was endorsed by the ASEAN Environment Ministers in 2013. So under the ASEAN Peatland ASEAN Program of Sustainable Management of Peatland Ecosystem, there were 6 key targets were endorsed. The first one, the peatland inventory. Second, zero burning and control burning with exceptional cases. The third, rehabilitation. Fourth, sustainable management, sustainable livelihood, sustainable economic use. Fifth, reduction of greenhouse gases emission. And the sixth, implementation of ASEAN Peatland Management Strategy and National Action Plan on peatlands. So this is very significant milestone for ASEAN in conserving the peatland ecosystem in the region. So from ASEAN Agreement on Trans-Boundary Haze Pollution signed in 2002, then ASEAN Peatland Management Initiative in 2003, then ASEAN Peatland Management Strategy in 2006, then ASEAN National Action Plan on peatlands. So objective of future projects and programs must be in line with the priorities of the ASEAN Social Cultural Community Blueprint, the intensifying implementation of the strategies, national action plans, and also the ASEAN program, support implementation of the ASEAN Haze-Free Roadmap. This is new, the Haze-Free Roadmap, and those year ago. Then upcoming projects, there are 4 Global Environment Facility funded projects in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mekong, and 1 EU funded ASEAN Cooperation in Biodiversity and Climate Change program with the title Sustainable Use of Peatland and Haze Mitigation in ASEAN. Then the Japan ASEAN Integration Fund. Then we have International Fund for Agricultural Development on measurable action for haze-free Southeast Asia. All these projects are to achieve sustainable management of peatland through collective actions and enhance cooperation to support and sustain local livelihoods, reduce fire risk and associated haze, and contribute to global environmental management for a clean and green ASEAN. And there's a saying, cherish the earth starts from each individual's footsteps. So this is all our responsibility to take care of our earth, the Mother Earth, the peatland ecosystem. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena. Okay, how do we bring all this together? First of all, I'm going to say we're going to go 5 minutes over time. It's not enough to really get a discussion going, but at least I would like to allow a few questions. Recently, I read something about the CK concept. It's another letter we add to the soup. It seems to be a concept that comes from the industry and seems to play a role in some parts of the industry to organize their thinking. It's about C, concept, and K, knowledge, and how we bring the two together. And I think in this session, maybe that's how we can frame what we have seen in this session, how knowledge is needed, which we saw in the first presentations, new knowledge about peatlands, the extent, the carbon stored there, but also the knowledge doesn't tell you much if you don't have a concept how you deal with it. And I think the second part of the presentations gave us a little bit more insight into conceptual thinking, thinking out of the box, bringing communities in, working with communities, learning from them too, and also thinking in broader ways than just single crop systems, but trying to develop a more integrated approach to management. And I also think we always have a tendency to go into one direction. Let's say red is going to solve everything, or this crop is going to solve everything. And I think we need to think of those systems in broader terms, in more integrated terms, and also in more diverse terms. And I guess this is maybe the take-home message today, that if we have the concepts alone without data, we don't get far. But we need data. We need the better data for the better management of peatlands. We need also to better understand where peatlands are and how deep they are and how much carbon's there. But also need to think about how we handle all this. And I think that's that came out of the second part. I'd like to open the floor for a few questions, and then I give a very quick final round for one-sentence comments to the panel, and so stay with us for another 5 minutes. Who has questions? Please come forward. Or comments? Nobody? Everything is crystal clear? You know what to do now? When you go out here, how are you going to save peatlands from now on? Okay, then maybe let's go to the panel again, and maybe start from Professor Osaki and then go this way. In just one sentence, what is your priority for the next steps? What would be the next thing that needs to be done? I think we need a microphone. One sentence. They're eager to get coffee. Take the. Okay.
So the next step, the very clear. I showed the two mechanisms for incentive. One is a credit mechanism, but to establish the credit. So the huge task work. So we want to reduce this kind of task work using something a model. We develop the satellite data and actually the monitoring and the binding, and so more easy to estimate the water tables and the CO2 emissions, something like that. So simplify that this maybe so the more easy to apply to REDD or some another the credit mechanism. And another the point, so we are still missing the something technology, how to use the biomass. So the lot of the project already gone to Europe and Japan and but so on, but not adequate technology. In here, the small community base or several the level is required, not yet so developing. And so the additional comment is should be to develop more the water management systems. So canal blocking is one idea, but already the drained and the dried areas, if make canals, no waters coming up, and so the irrigation is important. And they mention about in the case of the Vietnam, the U Minh Tuong National Park. So this totally banned the peatland in 1997 to 8 by big El Niños. Then so the government decided to protect and make a big, they shut down the canals and make the pumping up systems. Now so the wetland keep.
Don't elaborate. So credits, better biomass management, and water management.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Lera, please.
Hi. So, thinking about the Congo Basin region, of course it's good to have better information, and for any kind of land use or spatial planning, you need to know where the peat is. I don't think it's quite so important, although it's interesting and valuable, to know exactly how deep it is, because once that peatland starts to degrade, whether it's 2 meters or 5 meters, you'll still be getting significant annual emissions. So I think from a research quantification perspective, pinning down the area has to be the first priority. But I also don't think you need to wait for that better information to be starting to work on the policy and to be identifying how the development needs of that area can be met in a way that still protects that valuable ecosystem and all of its services, not just the carbon stocks.
Okay, so two-pronged approach, getting better data while already working on the policies, I think makes a lot of sense. Lera?
I would say welcome on board on the Peatland families and just do our best, use our capacity, and also to teach our friends or whoever to really conserve and protect the Peatland ecosystem in the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Did I say Lera? Sorry, Serena. Okay, welcome to the club. Budi.
So from my part, to make a better planning, we have to understand what is to be planned in there. And it's still too expensive for us using the luxurious technology as LiDAR to do peatland management. So we need to find another way that we can gather or we can have good enough data without having to pay for that data so much. So a technology for that. Second part is those luxurious data is idle if we don't use it properly. So please access those data and use it for research, for other purpose, even for measuring the carbon from this excellent data that we have. So it's open. So let's use that for the betterment of the peatland management.
I see everybody already on their cell phones accessing the data. Okay, Daniel?
I like that C and K concept. I think having had the map, it's yours, it's not ours, it's open for public. Conceptually speaking, it is usable to enter into this interaction with the NDC processes. So that's the next very destination we are heading to, how to locate this precious asset in terms of high carbon ecosystem, use the map and refine that, and we need knowledge. And with this knowledge, we can refine what we already have there, so it will be really applicable, so it will be very convincing to government, to local community, and also practitioner. So yeah, with the C and K thing, we can move forward with the map. And if you make next step and then turn right, you will see the landscape lab and visit our map there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, C and K, use knowledge smartly in better concepts, develop better concepts to use knowledge, and work one step further in bringing all this into country climate action, embedded in or incorporated in the NDCs. I think that's also a very important thing we need to work on. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Let's give a round of hands to the panel. And thanks for being here.